The greatest investment for most families is their home. It is the cornerstone of building generational wealth. Black families, however, lag behind every other racial and ethnic minority in home ownership. Nationwide, 3 out of every 4 white families own their homes, compared to just under half of all Black families. U.S. Bank is changing that statistic with its National Access Home Program, which helps close the home ownership gap, and Milwaukee is one of the first cities to take part in the program. U.S. Bank Access Home leaders joined us recently to tell us how the program got started and the impact they hope it will have in Milwaukee and across the country.
Thank you both so much for being with us today. Lenny, why is home ownership so important to building wealth?
Well, I think it just begins with a couple of things. First and foremost, it's sort of a motivator of a mindset. It becomes something that you dream about, you aspire about, when you think about the concept of family and what family means to most individuals. It's one of those things that creates a high level of excitement. The sad part about it is that, especially in communities of color, when you think about those opportunities, many did not get those types of opportunities because, and quite frankly, in many of the households of color, the idea of home ownership wasn't really discussed. But it's definitely one of those things where it is certainly something to aspire for, to work towards, and more than anything else, it just gives you a very positive message that says, you can attain it, it's possible, and if so, you can use that home to kind of jumpstart the next steps. And in many cases, for a lot of people, that's the development, the creation of personal wealth.
Tell us a little bit more about the racial home ownership gap that exists. How did it exist and how significant is it?
Well, I wish I could give you better news there, but that gap has been around for a very, very long time. And I'm of the mindset and the belief that gap was something that could not be avoided. And the reason I say that is because for many, many years, especially in the Black community, for example, there were significant obstacles from day one that had to be overcome. Quite frankly, just lack of information, lack of knowledge, lack of experience when it comes to home ownership or ownership in general, dating all the way back to Jim Crow and slavery and that type of thing. So the obstacles have always been there, and the gap just continues to grow and grow. And then, of course, just laws and regulations. You have to remember, for a very long time, it was legal to discriminate in the home ownership space. So when you think about, wow, it's legal to discriminate, again, you're adding to that gap, that disparity. And it's unfortunate that it exists, and it gives us an opportunity, and of course many others, an opportunity to do what they can to close that gap.
What are some of the obstacles that still exist that U.S. Bank is really trying to remove with the Access Home Program?
Well, I think the biggest one is just knowledge in general. One thing that I've learned in my 40 years in the industry is that knowledge is power. It's amazing what an individual is capable of doing when they are knowledgeable. And the Black community is no exception to that. I mean, if you think about anything that has faced the Black community, when we know better, we do better. And that's something that you can never take away. So from our point of view, just being in a position where we can provide knowledge, we can provide information through education, partnering with nonprofits, financial education, financial literacy, making sure that our folks are in the know. When you look at all of the catastrophes that took place in 2007, 2008, A lot of people try to blame that on a particular program or product. And yes, that those things did contribute, but the greatest contributor to that was us not being in a position where we had the knowledge, the know-how, the experience, because there were a lot of bad people communicating a lot of bad things during that time. Imagine, if you will, if we were armed with that information and that know-how and that knowledge to be able to look those individuals in the eye and say, thank you, but no thank you. That doesn't work for me. That's not good for my family. That's not good for my perception of what wealth development should be. And just no, let's move on. Imagine if, as a community, we were armed with that information.
Do people understand what the impact is on the community and our society as a whole when people are left out of this important part of wealth building in our country?
Being left out of anything is never a good feeling. I mean, let's be honest. We think and talk about the use of the word inclusion. To be part of something means being part of the solution and part of the change. So I think one of the things that Access Home does is it gives us an opportunity to make sure that we connect all parties. Those in the real estate industry, those in the nonprofit space, those in the wealth development space. We get to kind of become a conduit, if you will, where we can connect all of that. And the other thing that it certainly does is it creates a level of personal growth and personal self-esteem. I mean, when you know that you are capable, you can hold your head higher.
Well, one of the cities that's beginning to take part in this project, the initial launch of it, is Milwaukee. Nina, how was Milwaukee selected as one of the first places for Access Home to launch?
Well, it all has to do with what Lenny just described, which is the internal leadership determining that the efforts really matter as it pertains to our national landscape. I would have to say Lenny had a lot to do with how Wisconsin was chosen, and I'm so thankful for the partnership that he is continuing to exhibit right here in the Milwaukee footprint. When we launched Access, this was one of the first key for the kickoff of Access. So just to hear that it's come full circle, and now what we call the MLO, or Mortgage Loan Officer Program, and the trainees are right here in Milwaukee, is something that will be on the history books for years to come. The other part of what he just described as it pertains to really investing in our community from a talent perspective, but then also supportive of our communities, is also appraisals. When we think about or want to purchase a home, the appraisal is a key component of that process. And just like we're doing with the MLO program and training individuals to make sure that we have a diverse population to support our community, specifically in Milwaukee, where in many cases it does have opportunity to majority minority MSA. In those situations, we are also looking at appraisers so that we can say, okay, this appraiser looks like the community that they serve. So there's benefit to understanding the neighborhood, either nation located right here in Milwaukee. So just knowing that those two initiatives are up and running and we are ready to just start to offer different products and solutions to those individuals who are in Black and Brown communities right here in our state is something to be proud of in our 116 year of existence in Wisconsin, by the way. So excited about that as well.
One of the things that's so important is not only having the infrastructure, the people in place to make this happen, is also having local partners who help you with the outreach. Nina, who are some of the local partners and what kind of success are you beginning to see?
It's so good to bring this topic up because we could not have accomplished any of this without our faith-based partners as well as those in the housing industry. So when we think about faith-based communities, we have some very nice organizations that are located right here in with very prominent leaders in the faith-based community, one of which is Evolve Church right on Mill Road in 76. We also have a World Outreach Bible Training Center, 2 campuses on Silver Spring as well as in the southern part of our city. Those 2 churches specifically have done some great things, and I know other churches like Christian Faith Fellowship, they work with financial institutions to make sure that their congregants needed to be successful with their home ownership needs as well as other aspects of wealth building.
Again, home ownership is a big part of that, and it's a big focus of Access Home. Given the work that you've been doing here in Milwaukee, how quickly can we expect to see people find themselves in a position where they have that knowledge and now they're going to be able to move into the ranks of home ownership?
So I will tell you right away, you may as well start spreading the good news. I mean, Nina mentioned Evolve Church. First of all, if anybody doesn't believe that God works in wonderful ways, they need to get a history lesson. But the way that we ended up connecting with the church was absolutely amazing. We're talking about 2,800 in their congregation. One of the things that we talked about was the development of this creation of a cohort of individuals who have desired and really wanted to be homeowners, but didn't necessarily know how to go about that. So we wanted to create this educational cohort, and we are pleased and privileged today to mention that we have 500 members of that cohort already, all eager to be educated, to be credit prepared, and to obviously move to that next step of home ownership.
We are so excited to hear that information, and we look forward to having you both back where we can maybe have some of the homeowners with us and hear more about this great program and the great things it's doing in Milwaukee. Lenny and Nina, thank you both so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Access Home is just part of U.S. Bank's Access Commitment. You can find out more information at your local U.S. Bank or usbank.com. When we return, we'll address the fact that while awareness of our mental health is at an all-time high, we still have a lot of work to do to address the collective mental health crisis that is at the root of so many ills that plague our community. Stay with us.